You know what?
You
These
look
I
good.
never
You look
wear
good.
them.
Wow, I didn't recognize you.
Oh, I never wear them. They have a couple pairs.
Nice.
I might now.
Contacts with
I
her.
think, who is that gal?
Everybody notices them, I might now.
It's Emily.
How's everything?
What's that?
How is everything?
Good. We're doing okay. How's the dogs?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
I was climbing the mountain.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Great work.
Well,
Hard.
let's see.
It looks awesome.
some work to do.
Okay, you're on.
Okay.
It is 3 o'clock. Oh my.
Just in case.
And we're
That's
missing,
fine. Four of us.
just for the record, Mayor Pro Tem's not here. We don't have
Christine Wolf.
Christine Wolf, and we don't have Gwen. Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and get started.
Newbies.
We'll have the call to order the work session for 25 June 2019. First thing on the agenda is the council agenda items. So we'll go to the agenda items. Obviously, call to order, roll call, invocation, pledge, acceptance of the agenda. So on the acceptance of the agenda, is there anything additional or corrections that we need to do for the add or something you're expecting to see that's not there for the agenda?
We're at item 1, right?
Okay.
There we go. If I can
Yeah.
make a comment.
Okay.
I am gonna be absent on Thursday.
Okay. And I understand also Mayor Pro Tem may also be not back from Phoenix, so that we'll have at least 2 people that won't be there. Now we got city manager's report is the next item. Chuck, is there anything that you want to touch on now? In the city manager's report?
Well, not necessarily on the city manager's report, but I think we need at least 6.
We have an emergency clause on the financing resolution, so we need 6
So
positive
since
votes.
there will be 5, we'll need to table the item for the next.
Okay, well, we need to verify with the Mayor Pro Tem that she will not be back from Phoenix. I think that's the case.
Here she is right there.
What?
Are you gonna be back? Are you gonna be back from Phoenix on Thursday, or are you gonna miss the council meeting?
I will miss the council meeting.
Okay, so then we need to go ahead and do that check. We're gonna have 2 that are not gonna be back. So we'll have
Christine
to-
will be here.
Yeah, but we have 2 that won't be here, and we
We
need
have
a
time to pull it
6.
Yes, we can pull it.
Yeah,
We're gonna
okay.
pull up so you don't have to table it. So-
Okay.
Which agenda item is this?
So when is your deadline for
The
having
finance.
We'll just push back
to the next,
Yeah,
next meeting?
So we'll push the meeting, we'll
Pull
push
it
the
back
item to the 11th.
To the 11th, okay. Oh, there's Gwen. Okay.
Fiscal policy.
Which item is that, Chuck?
It's the financing one for Schneider Electric.
Oh,
Yeah,
Is that 7?
7, I think. No,
8?
8, 9.
Okay, so number 9 needs to come off the agenda because we won't have enough people there to do a super majority vote. Okay. All right then. Next is the public hearing, and we have item number 2 is the liquor license. Mrs. Adams, you wanna?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, the application on this item is a Series 12, which is a restaurant liquor license for Anyaya Malarchik.
Easy for you
Sorry,
to
I
say.
butchered that. The location, 2047 South Highway 92, that's the Windermere Hotel. The public hearing notice for this application was posted the required amount of time, and we have received no comments for or against. The police department has done their background check, and they have no objections to the item moving forward. So if you approve it on Thursday night, it will be returned to the state for final approval.
Any questions on the liquor license for Mrs. Adams?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Item number 3 is also yours, I believe.
That would be my codification, yes. Mayor Mueller, members of council, for those newer members, this process of codification is an administrative process that we go through every 12 to 18 months, where we gather up all of the ordinances that actually change the city code, and we have them made codified, which means that all they are is they are then incorporated into our code book. When the codes are passed throughout the year, they still go into effect. This has no bearing on that. This only affects the actual record of the city that they have been codified. So this covers January 1, 2018 through May of 2019. And we maintain very few paper copies of this, of our city code anymore. The online version is updated as ordinances are passed, but after this is passed and the 30 days passes, then it will be deemed official record. But it has no bearing on the actual effectiveness of any of the ordinances involved.
So it's purely administrative action. Did you have a question?
No, I was asking, that was, yes, to have the band turned on.
And I would note on this, the list of ordinances that we had on the table, there's a couple for property exchange and an annexation. Those have been taken off because those are not reflected in code. So it's just the ones other than that that actually change the code in the code book. And one other thing I did want to point out to everyone, and so we can get it out to people, is we recently went through and had the same company that does our codification do our development code. So the development code is now online, fully searchable in the same format as the city code. The links are right next to each other on the homepage. So I think that that'll make it a lot easier for our citizens to search our development code.
Okay. Any questions for Jill? Any further discussion? Okay, thank you, Jill. We now go to item number 4, Mr. McLaughlin.
I don't know how useful this is going to be. It should be a little bit more legible than the 8.5 by 11 map that's in your agenda packet. My intent was to lay it on the table, but I'm not sure there's enough room. I do have a PowerPoint presentation to take you through the proposed amendments to the traffic circulation plan, which may be a little easier to decipher. Okay, here we go. So one of my professional duties is to serving as the chair of the Technical Advisory Committee to the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the regional transportation planning entity serving Sierra Vista area. And last August, we had ADOT come in with proposed amendments to the statewide functional classification map as part of a larger rebalancing project. They were seeking local input, and through that process, we noticed that there were some inconsistencies between ADOT's map and our locally adopted Vista 2030 transportation planning map circulation plan, as well as inconsistencies between our plan as well as the MPO's regional transportation plan. And one of the charging statements in the Vista 2030 is to update the traffic circulation plan as necessary to determine roadway classifications. And so our recommendation to you today is to make those revisions to bring our locally adopted transportation circulation plan into conformance with the state and regional designations. Okay. And so this exhibit, again, which is a little difficult to read, shows the existing and proposed traffic circulation plan. And the 61% of the segments, we're not proposing any changes, okay? Where most of the changes are occurring are adding collectors and residential connectors to the traffic circulation plan. And it's okay that our nomenclature is a little different from the MPO and the state in the sense that a residential connector is our equivalent to a minor collector. That's how it's defined in the development code. We do not have to Xerox or mirror directly the terminology of the state and region. This is our own plan, so we can use our own vernacular. And so, again, most of the changes are adding the collectors and residential connectors to the map, downgrading principal arterials to minor arterials in a couple cases. And then the balance would be downgrading minor collectors to minor arterials to collectors, or collector streets to residential connectors. And this matrix, which I believe was included in your backup, is from the development code, and it explains the differences between each roadway classification. Obviously, principal arterials provide the greatest mobility. However, they're the most restrictive in terms of access. They're the largest roads at the highest speeds that are intended to connect you from place to place. The collectors provide the conduit between the arterials and the local roadway network. Most of our streets are local streets. About 2/3 of the overall transportation network in Sierra Vista are local streets, which is pretty typical. This is the long-range transportation plan adopted by the MPO that we're seeking to emulate. And this is the statewide functional classification system being proposed by ADOT. And there's a link that you can use to connect to the internet to see where the proposed changes are. So looking at the principal arterials, on the state and regional transportation map, Fry Boulevard and East Charleston Road are designated as minor arterials, so we're proposing to make that change from principal arterial to minor arterial to be consistent with those plans. Wilcox Drive between Coronado and 7th Street is proposed to be changed from a principal arterial down to a collector, which is consistent with its current roadway configuration and traffic volume. Avenida Cochise and South Coronado is proposed to go from a principal arterial down to a minor arterial. Then east of Highway 90 from a principal arterial to a collector. There, the traffic volume is under 5,000 vehicles per day. And typically, for the ranges for average daily traffic for a collector is between 5,000 and 10,000. For minor arterials, between 10,000 and 20,000. And the principal arterials typically carry over 20,000 vehicles per day. So these changes will bring them into conformance with their current and intended function. The changes to the minor arterials are shown on this graphic, and we're proposing to amend West Fry Boulevard and West Wilcox Drive from a minor arterial down to a collector. And again, that's consistent with the envisioned roadway characteristics of making it a more walkable, accessible Main Street type environment. With respect to West Fry Boulevard, I do want to show you some proposed amendments that are not included in the backup that I picked up today looking at the parcel mapping. There was some property in the northwest sector of the city's planning area that was previously considered as a special, as part of a special planning process called Bella Vista Ranch.
Talk about northeast.
Northeast.
Is it northwest?
Did I say northwest? Excuse me, northeast.
And subsequent to that plan approval, large swath of that property is shaded in green, was acquired by the Nature Conservancy and conveyed to the county. And so there's no longer a need for, because it's going to remain in conservation in perpetuity, for these roads to connect to that property. So we're going to be proposing eliminating those segments with the plan amendment that we're going to be presenting on Thursday. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. This is the tribute area. Again, the vision there is for more of a neo-traditional style residential community. And there were some larger minor arterial roadways that were originally proposed for that planning sector, special area plan. And then through preliminary conversations with the developer, and I confirmed today, there's a desire to downgrade those larger roads to smaller streets, what we call residential connectors. And essentially that's a 2-lane roadway with parking on both sides. I would say use St. Andrews Drive as a mental example of what a residential connector would be. So it's wider than a residential street, again, to funnel traffic through residential neighborhoods. And our recommendation is to make those changes to within the Tribute Special Area Plan. With respect to collector streets, changing some of the existing designations down to residential connectors, and Busby would be an example, again, to fit the current roadway profile characteristics and recognize the existing and anticipated traffic volumes. That would be a more appropriate classification. Same with St. Andrews Drive. We're proposing to upgrade South 7th Street from a collector to a minor arterial, which is consistent with the remainder of 7th Street. Changing Tacoma Street from a collector to a connector. Again, that traverses through a residential area and does not carry the volume to warrant a collector status. It's under 5,000 trips per day, so a connector would be the more appropriate classification. And that's true for the roadways south of town. Our planning area encompasses some of the unincorporated areas adjacent to the city, and which are reflected on our transportation circulation plan. And so again, the roadway profile characteristics are more consistent with how we describe a residential connector than a collector. So we're proposing that change with the amendments before you. And these are the segments that were shown on the state ADOT statewide functional classification map. The minor collectors we're depicting as residential connectors. Again, they're essentially equivalent. And adding those to the traffic circulation plan. You see Winter Haven Drive and Shadow Ridge Drive both function as residential connectors. They are not currently classified on our current map. We're proposing adding it to the functional classification system.
Is that a private street or is that a public street?
Winter Haven Drive is private, I believe.
Most of it is.
And the question then is, should we be classifying private streets?
Again, we're taking our cue from the ADOT statewide functional classification map, which has it designated as a minor collector.
Okay.
So, and they engage a consultant, I just want to say, to develop, to examine our roadways using the screening criteria that establish the appropriate classification by roadway type, and this is the result.
But I guess my point is, if it's a private street, it's not going to be
Right.
available for public funds
that is
to
correct.
do it. So, but I guess it's okay to.
It still functions as a minor collector.
As far as
but
functions,
it will
we
not
can
be on the
list it there.
FHA
Okay,
list.
all right.
Thank you, Matt. Is there a tie based off the classification percentage of what type of classification you have for your city, or bigger, that ties into funding, whether it be HERF funds or type of funds we get from the state or federal? Or they just do this to know what we have? If that makes sense.
Yeah, again, so ADOT's map, not our local general
Right.
plan map, and we're striving to become more consistent with the ADOT map, establishes what's eligible for federal funding.
Okay.
So they're going through the rebalancing process. The result of their work will generate a list of eligible roadway facilities
Okay.
for federal funding by the MPO.
Normally what they'll do is they'll say federal money can be used for this classification of street. So if it's a collector, if it gets as low as a collector, then we can use that money, or we can apply to
Apply
use
that
that money for those things. If not, we're limited to something that's higher, that has more traffic, that has more of a federal/state impact.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, I don't believe Theater Drive was previously classified, and through this rebalancing project is being added to the list as a minor collector, making it potentially eligible for MPO funding going forward. So,
But again, I will tell you that in the MPO process, when they discuss where projects are, the proposed projects from the cities and the county are gonna be, they will look at which has the most effect. And obviously, if it's a lower ranked street, where it's not gonna have an effect, if there's another one above it that needs more, that has more effect on traffic flow, et cetera, the chances are that will be the one that's selected for the project.
Gotcha.
Because the money is not, you don't always have, you never have enough money
Right.
to do all the projects.
Exactly.
but
Okay.
without it, it's not eligible unless it's
That's
on
right.
the FHA list. So,
Right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you,
I
Mr.
missed
Mayor.
what street you just mentioned.
Theater Drive.
Theater Drive, thank you.
So, can I ask that you showed a speed limit attached to the classification? So does that mean like speed limits are changing on all these roads,
No.
or?
Yeah, again, the development code, that's the design speed of the road.
Up to
It doesn't
Okay.
set the speed limit, it's just what the engineering standard provides in terms of,
Can you go back to that slide, the design speed?
sure. Again, yeah, so, the lanes are typically a little wider for arterials.
And again, that's gotta be the maximum design speed, because
Maximum
there
design
may be
speed.
conditions with visibility and other
Exactly.
things that would require them to drop down.
Right,
Pedestrian access, all the other things,
Residential.
residential, bike paths, all those other things may cause that 60 mile per hour number to drop
right.
significantly.
In our
So-
case, it's 55.
Yeah. So each area has to be looked at individually for
Like Coronado would
So,
be.
because,
Am I off base there, chief?
No, that's right, and I think we go through our traffic safety committee that makes these decisions individually through the city and through our engineering.
Do you take the classification into account?
Well, they take, obviously, that's the max speed that can be of it, but then they take in the other factors to determine the actual speed limit. But as an example, residential streets, if you look, maybe but by state law, residential streets are 25 miles per hour. And so that's the max speed in a residential area. So those kind of things get taken into account in those decisions you make.
so there's nothing binding us if we put it in a new class like west of 7th and Fry, how we want people to hopefully go slower. The design speed would be less than 40.
Right,
I would hope,
right,
okay.
right, that's the
We're not
max
gonna-
design speed,
okay.
right.
And just max design speed is just what the road is equipped to handle long-term speeds, right? When you say that, I mean, obviously it's not,
The geometry of the road
yes,
would support that maximum design
yes,
speed.
that's what I'm
Right.
asking. Thank you.
You know,
Obviously, when you're driving
geometry.
through Huachuca City, it's built to
Yeah,
a principal
that class
arterial.
that
They have a
has
much
to
lower
be
speed
free.
limit because it's a business district, so you can,
I just thought they wanted to give tickets.
and Huachuca Mountain Elementary School, I mean, even though it's a principal arterial, you can reduce the speed limit based on the land use characteristics adjoining the roadway.
And for Taylor Drive, the way you highlighted, or maybe not you, whoever did the map, included either Tacoma or De Palma Street, and I only know that because that's where I live. But do you have to specifically name that street to make sure that gets in the same class? Because that's what they'll do. They'll just take Taylor, and then instead of continuing on Taylor, they'll use my street.
One more.
It's not on here, but
The
it's
yellow
on
one, there you go,
yeah.
that one right
Right there.
there.
Okay.
Like it's not listed, but it's highlighted. So we have to have it in there to make sure we get the same
You mean the name's
class.
not-
The name's not highlighted?
Can you
No.
walk up there and show it?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, it's just a function of the
map.
buffering of the labels being too close together and not displaying. I could reduce the font size, which would
Okay, because it
allow it
doesn't.
to.
Okay.
Then we really won't be able.
I think it should be included
Yeah,
because
okay.
everyone they don't want to stop at the four-way stop, so they use my street.
Okay.
So I think what she's saying is Tacoma, Taylor is the main road, but they cut down.
Tacoma
the-
and
Tacoma,
Daypama
cut
is
it
a big
off,
one
is
too.
what
Yeah.
her comment is. So
Getting the
Tacoma
coverage.
residential
So
street.
we just
Put
made
up
one
a
of the streets
roadblock.
today.
Okay.
That's what she should do.
A roadblock.
Put a roadblock.
Roadblock.
We'll see that where that goes.
Well, again, we're just following the ADOT map.
Put John out there.
What was the one you said? 7th Street or South 7th Street? You're gonna reclassify?
That was east.
No, he did say South. Probably said South.
So
Can you
I
say
believe that's
that,
7th
right?
here.
Yeah.
It's just showing as
No,
a
that's
minor
not.
material.
And it's going down
Yeah.
to a collector.
Sometimes we just say something.
No, it was going
Oh,
I think that was
seven.
having to do with Cochise, you mentioned.
No,
going
see
from
right
a
there, the
collector.
green.
It's going
Oh,
from a
it's
collector to an arterial.
To an
To
arterial.
a minor arterial being consistent
going
with the
up.
state map.
Is it going down?
Oh.
Oh. Just like the transit route.
Okay.
Hmm?
What else can I
Just like
answer?
the transit route.
So with the effect of doing it, it just opens up possible funding for those roads. Is what.
That-
Well, it's
that's-
a more accurate representation of our transportation network. And it does have an effect on our consultant as they calculate impact fees for needed roadway infrastructure improvements. So that's going to be part of the methodology.
The other thing, I'll tell you the same thing I told the planning and zoning when they met is this map probably hasn't been updated for 20 years. And things like the main gate have changed,
Exactly.
is where they are, and that's caused significant volume changes on key roads. We have it's probably done when we did the loop on Buffalo Soldier Trail, and there's been a lot of different growth, etc. since then. So it's time basically to go and make sure that we reflect what's going on and how we're growing.
Right, and if I didn't mention already, this map does have regulatory effects. So when we are reviewing a site plan for new construction, we're going to examine what the adjacent roadway classification is in determining allowable access. So where the driveway could be relative to an intersection.
Who's doing traffic counts right now? Is that us? Not the, currently out on the streets. Who's doing the traffic counts? Is that ADOT or is that us?
Public Works, and I believe ADOT
They both
also
do.
has their own structure.
They share data.
Could I ask one more question about 7? So going up to an arterial, would it impact the classification of the road, building this fire ambulance station in that spot? Because you'd
On
be
7.
raising the road to arterial level road, and then we want to put an ambulance station there.
Well, I think we're talking about the south end of 7th Street. What we're talking about is where the entrance for the station has to be on the road.
So
And they can-
in
there's
that
enough-
case, it'll be
there's-
250 feet
Yeah.
from the intersection. And I think
And
we should be able to meet
there's
that.
enough space to back it off where it's not going to be an issue.
Okay.
Good question.
That's
From the
good
light,
thinking.
so we don't have to put another set of lights into.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything else, Matt?
that's all.
Any other questions? Thanks, guys.
Sir. Thank you, man.
Good discussion. We now move on to new business, item number 5. Approval of the minutes. Anything in the minutes for the 13th that there needs to be corrected? Any items that need to be noted for the clerk to get corrected before the meeting?
I didn't see anything.
Okay. Then we go on to item number 6, strategic plan with Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
After the feedback received at the last work session, the following changes were made to the plan. In the engage goal, the first goal was reworded to reflect citizen engagement and awareness of city operations versus simply citizen perception. With the revision to that goal, the first action item was then removed, and then sub-goals added 1A and 1B to address specific comments that were made about the city's website, including EDA compatibility, and then online tools that would specifically focus on engaging with the public and receiving measurable feedback. Under the enhance item, goal 1 was also revised to focus on improving efficiency and effectiveness of public safety, and similarly to the first one, that also required removing the first action item, which had also referred to establishing a baseline on perception, since that was no longer what the goal was measuring. Under the empower item, goal number 2 was added to explore and implement methods to address homelessness, mental health, and affordable housing. And then 2 action items first to define the scope of the problems and to what extent the council wanted to be involved in those problems. And then 2, identifying partners and developing plans to address each area. And then action item 7 was added under the first goal also to reflect implementing shopping locally plans. And there were no changes made under enjoy. So hopefully that captured the changes that council wanted to see in the strategic plan, and I am happy to answer any additional questions.
Any crickets?
No, I think we all
No,
got it
we
out.
have
talked about this.
We're worn out,
You
is
guys
what
have
you tell
talked
us,
about it.
okay?
Talked about it.
You wanna see
Thank
some
you so
action,
much.
huh? You wanna see
Thank
some
you.
action, okay, well, thanks.
Mayor, is Victoria going to talk about possible presentation?
So the next steps
Yep.
are after
Thank you.
council approves the strategic action plan, it goes to Judy. Her team will create the pretty handout version, and along with that, we'll also create some handouts and put together some canned slides. So if council wishes to go and make presentations or talk to different groups, you'll have those ready to take with you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, that'll be great.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7, Mr. Patuchik.
Where's
That's the one.
Did you get it? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I don't have
It's,
You don't have it?
yeah, it was, it should have been distributed electronically.
one. Yeah, but I don't have it in mine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, essentially, this is amending our current agreement that we have with both Cochise County and the Huachuca 50. The old agreement had cost splits or cost share of $30,000 each for a total of $90,000 for the engagement of a consultant to assist us in Washington with Fort Huachuca support activities. That number has been renegotiated down to $60,000 total, with the cost shares being $27,000 each for the city, county, and then $6,000 for the Huachuca 50, which I think reflects the financial position that the 50 currently finds itself in. So this would then extend out for another year. We have engaged the firm of Kelly Dry, primarily represented by Mr. Joe Corrigan. Some of you have had the pleasure of meeting him, and he's been very helpful to us in terms of his engagement in Washington. So this will continue this agreement on those terms then for the coming year, and then probably be changed again next year.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment as somebody who sits on the board as a ad hoc member of the board for the 50. They have looked at their due structure and their fundraising structure, and they have changed those. They hope to be able to raise enough money where they can get back to paying a third share. I think it's important that we give them at least a year to be able to do that. and then reevaluate. That's why the contract, normally the contract has been, I think, 2 years.
Yes.
This year it's a 1-year contract, and they are obviously a valuable part of our efforts to retain the missions of Fort Huachuca, and we need to take that into consideration. But again, if they're not able to become a full partner within a year or two, I think it's imperative upon the city and county to continue to do this mission, even if they're not a funding partner, and use their expertise, etc. But hopefully we won't get to that point. But that would be, in my mind, that would be a worst case scenario. We need to keep the community involved, and the 50 needs to pay their like share.
And I agree with that. Chuck, it says a 1-year term with 4 automatic 1-year extensions, but obviously the extensions can improve.
Yeah.
I can't talk today, but can include differences in pricing and things like that, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So we would, if there is a change or a significant change to the cost sharing or the arrangement as structured, we would bring that back to you for separate approval next year.
Okay. So, and it would be just even if it's the same amount that.
Yeah. If it's the same amount, we wouldn't necessarily have to bring it back.
Right, but I mean, like if it would be approved in the budget. If if Huachuca 50 is able to then do the 20,000 next year, then ours goes down, and.
My responsibility would be to let you know if there is a change in status.
Okay.
So,
Good.
And then, where in the IGA does it say the money? All I was able to see was the up to 35,000 for the county. Oh, so is the IGA just saying we're in an agreement with them? And then
that's where the back up information I had Jim put out should have to share.
It's in the cover letter.
I don't have the IGA.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Have it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
I just had the.
Jill's gonna get
That's kind of.
Okay.
You know,
I
it
got
took
it.
me a while to figure that out too, when I first started.
Okay, any further discussion on the consultant agreement? Okay, so we'll now move on to the fiscal, which one gets taken off? It's
the amendment to the financial policy.
Yeah, the amendment to the financial policy is next, Mr. Felix.
Mayor, members of council, as many of you know, the public safety retirement system's financial situation is less than ideal. The state legislature, in the tradition of strong leadership and tackling problems, has decided in their wisdom that the first step they're going to do is mandate that cities come up with a policy on how they're going to pay this off and be 100% funded. And they did pass this into law. This resolution adds a funding policy as required. It meets the requirement, and basically all it says is it's doing what we're currently doing and striving to do. We did put off the payoff to be 100% funded by June 30th, 2036, because the actuarial valuation, that extra 40% we pay towards funding, assumes that's when it'll be paid off. So we're matching what the state has told us we're going to be paying it off by anyway. We say we're going to make that minimum contribution that they give us, and we're going to strive to keep paying people the employer contribution for replacement drop program. We're going to strive to pay the whole budgeted amount. The key point there is obviously if we have vacant like police positions, we budget for the PSPRS for those positions. We're going to strive to make that budgeted payment. We're going to strive to pay the whole budgeted amount in the first quarter of the year. A few years back, Paradise Valley made an estimate, and they thought about paying their full PSPS contribution at the beginning of the fiscal year. They got an extra $50,000 of interest earnings off of it, assuming, of course, the great retirement and great investment policy didn't blow things up and lose 25%. And then we're going to, when our contribution rate starts to drop on these items, we're going to strive to maintain that higher contribution rate to help then the payoff go quicker. So for instance, If say in 2 years we went from a 50% police department contribution rate to a 45% contribution rate, we're gonna strive to keep it at the 50%. That's just additional payments going to help bring it back to fully funded status. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Can you remind me what the total liability for that is?
We're currently funded, it was in the cover memo,
50%. but
Yeah,
what's
the
total?
percentages are the
No, I
percentages
don't
of
want
it.
percentages, I want dollar amounts. I just,
You need to get that to us because it's not in that.
yeah, I didn't
I'm sorry, I
see
thought I
it.
put it in the cover memo.
20 million there.
It's, yeah.
Just 20
It's about, I think,
million
around the 20
approximately.
million mark.
And that's for both funds?
To be whole,
For
20
police
million,
and
okay.
fire.
Yeah.
Well, that's just police and fire, that's not ASRS?
ASRS, we do not, ASRS is completely separate in their whole plan because it is statewide. We could not make an extra payment on ASRS to fund us. The public safety is unique in the fact that each individual entity in it has a separate valuation with a separate contribution rate. And in fact, our police and fire are considered two separate entities in PSPRS. We get separate valuation reports for each one, which is why each one is reported separately in the pension, in our CAFR.
So the plan ultimately, and what we're doing is going to attempt to work that number, that $20 million down by 2036. So that would be the goal that we're trying to achieve.
And this is based on a piece of legislation that was dictated by the state to us.
Yes.
I still have some, and I'll just share this with the group. I'm going to be voting for this because obviously we're required to do this plan and it's a reasonable plan. However, I do have some other issues dealing with ASRS and PSPRS that I will be bringing up and talking to the board at the League of Cities and Towns. And one of them is, for example, it's great that we could say we're 100% funded by 2036, but the bottom line is not everybody's going to retire. Not everybody who's in the system is going to be retired by 2036. So there's really not a need to do that. The question is how healthy do you have to be to avoid healthy in the amount of funding that you have, the percentage of funding you have, to avoid potential 7% losses, or I think it was 9% losses, and then 25% losses. This most recent one that have happened based on, I'll just say, lack of prudent management of the funds that are beyond the city's control. So those are kind of some discussions I need to have with the other mayors on the board, and see if we can get a better situation for this. And I'm not sure. I'm still not convinced that the legislature really understands what the problems are, and we need to work on that as well with our own legislators as well as other folks. So there's more to be done. I think this is a stopgap, essentially, to make sure that we keep funding it and our heads above board. We don't become a Bisbee.
Yes.
And we shouldn't be paying for like ASRS would imply that if Bisbee would go down, that we as an ASRS member, we would be paying for their debt. We shouldn't be doing that. But again, that's another issue that needs to be worked out. So it's not. This gets us to a better position, but it doesn't solve the problem. And I've been talking about this since before I was mayor, I think, Chuck.
Yeah, I think the legislature does understand that they want to make this your problem.
Well, no, it's our problem. It's our problem. It's not the legislature's problem. It's our problem.
They understand.
And you'll
They
mention
understand that part.
oversight when you talk to them.
Well, the thing is the way they, yeah. Anyway, oversight is an interesting concept for them. Okay.
They call them.
Any other discussion on this item? And we're gonna pull number 9. So that's what you said, Chuck?
Yeah.
Okay. Call the public comments, requests of council. And we know that Ms. Calhoun's going to be there, Mr. Benning's going to be there, Ms. Humphrey's going to be there. Ms. Pacheco will not be at the meeting. Ms. Wolf will be at the meeting, but the Mayor Pro Tem will not be at the meeting. So we need to make sure we got all the assignments on who's reading what to who and bringing things up straightened out before the meeting. Next is a report on trips, recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. And I'll let you know that I was a little disappointed to learn on, I think it was Wednesday morning early, that the new Secretary of Defense had withdrawn his name, so we didn't get a chance to meet with him in Tucson on Friday. So that meeting was a bust. So that's my report on trips, meetings, and future meetings. Anybody else?
We're not talking about the,
It's gonna be pulled, we need a
It was
supermajority.
full.
It's going to be pulled.
oh, I'm,
'Cause we
okay.
need
Yeah, no
I
super-
missed
We'll have,
that.
we'll have
Okay.
two, yeah, we'll have two people on. We need a super majority. We need 6 votes to pass it. If we only have 6 on the dais or 5 on the dais, it's going to be even tougher.
And just
I
for
could vote twice.
Tried that.
Okay, anything else for recent trips, meetings, future meetings? Okay. Board and commission liaison updates.
Oh, I'm not sure if that's, we're trying to extend the, call to artists for the mural, and we want a few more names in there. But I'm not sure if that is, I'm waiting to hear back if we can extend it. I put in a request.
Well, I think you can extend
Okay.
the
I
opening
just
period, but
haven't
again, you
heard
gotta,
for sure there was nothing.
Who
Yeah.
needs to give permission for that?
I think
The
Rob wants to
procurement
talk
officer
to
is
Procurement.
representing,
Donald.
yeah,
Yeah.
not only the reissuance, but perhaps taking a different approach to try to increase responses.
Yeah, we
How
were
many
thinking of
responses did you get?
simplifying
One.
the
You get mine yet?
we've had a couple artists express that the reason they didn't apply was because of the lengthy. It was a very
lengthy form.
long and a lot of creative types don't want to sit there and read 20 pages in legal jargon. It's just a lot for them. So we have to simplify it.
It's true. I've heard the same
No.
thing. Yeah.
That must be my issue. I must be
Public,
one of
you
those
know, if you
people.
want public money, it's the same thing we complain about with the federal government. If you want public money, you gotta go through all the paperwork.
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
on locations for art, are we open for suggestions for where some more art may be placed? Paintings
I
and
think you
stuff?
can give those suggestions to the Arts and Humanities Commission.
Okay.
If you got good ideas, share.
Well, I don't know if it's good, but it's an idea.
Sure.
Like we talked, Parks and Rec is doing great. We're working on a master plan, including talking about Bella Vista right now. So that's number 1 on our list. If she's behind me, I'm not sure. Is she that back there?
Who's she?
Who you looking for?
Laura.
Oh, Laura's not here. You're safe.
I can't turn my neck that far. Culture diversity, same issue I've been having. I think we just got an application last week or week before for somebody. We're up to 4 members. But we sent out a who's coming and no one responded. So if anybody's listed, always looking for culture diversity members. But we were working on Christmas, the Christmas tree lighting, because we weren't having a culture diversity fair this year. We wanted to try to do something more. So maybe I'll stop by and talk to y'all with Arts and Leisure and maybe put something together, because we don't have enough members. Yes,
I have
ma'am.
a question. It's probably for Jill. Jill, with commissions, if there's a period of time where there isn't enough members, do we have anything on the record to dissolve a commission or anything of that nature? That's just a kind of individual thing we look
The
at.
council is the only body
Okay.
that can dissolve, and how and when you choose to do that is up to you.
So that'll be something there then
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
September.
no, we've been
I'd
talking
say
about
one of
it,
one of the things I've been doing, and I'll give you the status of where I am. I've been looking at all the commissions. I've had a opportunity to talk to all the council members that wanted to talk to me. There's a couple of consolidations and those type of things that I think would help. So we're still getting input from the public. But again, I need to talk to Jill about a couple of things. In fact, I'm at the point now where I've got of those commissions that probably either need to be consolidated or downsized or mission changes. I've got the actual verbiage from what the council's approved on what their missions are, and trying to merge and trying to make sure that we still cover the areas that need to be covered is a little technical difficulty, and that's kind of where I am right now, balancing it out. Obviously, before I do anything, I'll talk to staff, and hopefully, I think I said September. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
we'll
said
have
September.
something to present to you September timeframe as a basically an egg to bake and boil and come up with what appeal and whatever else we need to do to make it better. So, and it's just taking me a little more time, and I apologize for that, but I'm trying to, I want to provide a product we can at least start with.
I think that's
I agree.
fair.
Okay.
Are there any other commissions that don't have a quorum that are unable to meet?
I don't think so.
Just for
right now.
public information
The
purposes?
youth commission is kind of up and down, but I think
Well, and that's-
they have enough members.
And that's kind of a special,
locally.
youth commission is kind of a special thing that's presenting some issues, I think,
Yeah.
because we really need, I think we all agree that the youth need to be involved in government, they need to understand how it works, they understand projects, and their mission statement, I think, needs to be completely reworked, and a few other things to make it more effective and more appealing for the students to want to join. So that's a little bit more of a challenge than a regular commission.
Some of the commissions call their youth commission the mayor's commission, and to raise the status of it. No, actually,
Oh,
really.
yeah, well, I understand.
So,
And to advise the mayor, kind of, but
Yeah.
also the council, yeah.
but it also gives that extra bit of status, I think, to the
yeah.
kids.
Okay, well, that's something I'll think about too. So that's kind of where I am on that proposal. It's in the works, and I've gotten a little further than you might expect, but again, I gotta go a ways before we're ready to present and start discussions.
Well, we got like 2.5 months, we're good.
Yeah, well, we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so speaking of future discussion items, have we got anything on the schedule for future work sessions?
Not at the moment, Mayor.
Okay, and that's typical this time of year. Once we get the budget, everybody kind of takes a deep breath, and then the issues will start coming up.
We should look at the council work, the council manual. It's supposed to revise every couple of years.
And in
I
fact,
think it's been a couple of years.
I
Well,
set
then-
on my list for October.
yeah, in fact,
October.
by doing the other one, some of the things on the council book have come up as well, and
Yeah.
I've done a couple of notes as well, and I'll share that with Jill. But again, you're right, that needs to be revised as well. Okay, anything else?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it rises, maybe I could do it another time, but our city sign, where we come into town, are there any plans for it to be looked at? I mean, it needs to be spruced up a bit. Landscaped.
So you're talking actually putting landscape rocks around the base so it
Something.
looks nice?
Yeah,
And maybe some foliage at the appropriate distance behind it, so it,
we heard foliage was, the
Well, you don't wanna
problem
put
of
it in
watering
front,
it was
yeah.
a problem.
well, you have some dry landscape behind it that'll break it up,
Be
help break it
nice.
up.
Is that anywhere in the works?
Yes, there's a Rotary Club that we're currently working with that we're going to start in monsoon season since there's no water out there and we can't irrigate, just
Great.
kind of out by the highway. So they've been working on that
Which
since
one?
last year.
Have an idea.
And if that doesn't
Hank
work,
took
I'm
it.
happy to.
She
find
took
a
the
bunch
hit.
of
The new
those.
Rotary?
She took the lead on
We can take a blue
Next
pen,
week.
put a line
Yeah.
sign, make it a rain barrel.
Wait,
Was there something else?
No, that's, I said a couple of things, but I'll bring it up later.
Okay.
okay, a future, I guess, request that, we talked about this soon after, I came on, having a discussion about social media policy.
Oh,
and-
man.
We're still waiting on the, right, Victoria? Have they put out the opinion on the municipal attorneys yet?
Nope.
And that's what we're waiting on, I think.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we bring it back at some point.
I'm very anxious for them to do this.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think, I'll speak for I think we need a meet and greet in the future, if y'all interested. That way we can talk about the Snyder project coming up, answer questions, and
Well, yeah, and that's a good, I think that's a good point, because one of the questions that unfortunately, our reporter's not here, is one of the questions,
She was.
the Snyder project is, we know what's going on and what's happening, but have we gotten any publicity as far as why we're doing it, and the environmental impact, the financial savings, all those kind of stories, I don't really see out there in the press. And once it's approved, once the budget is approved, I think it's the time to move on that.
And we are planning to put out a PR plan and program out there, so
Okay.
we'll be working with Judy's
Maybe
group
some
to do
in
that.
August.
And Chuck, can I request again, like, just with the strategic plan,
Oh,
that
without
we
the
might have a boilerplate presentation for council to present to different organizations, so we all are showing and saying the same things.
And the key thing is a series of talking points, and this is
Yep.
something to do good the morning with the chamber, to stand up and say, hey, this is going on, we just approved this in the budget, here's why we did it, here's the impacts for environment, here's the impacts for, I mean, you do that in 5 minutes to a group of people that are gonna go talk about it across the city.
Yep.
And if we can do that, that would be great.
You wanted that on the budget or the Schneider project?
The Snyder project
Schneider
in particular, because it's kind of buried in the budget
Yeah.
right now, and I think it's really a good news story for us.
Right, and we have the book that was put
Which is
together for us, which
Probably
is
not the most public friendly.
exactly, and that's
reading,
why
yeah.
it's would be better to do the PR campaign
I
thing
think it's
for it.
fascinating,
But
but
there
that's
is-
I've got it, yeah.
So we've
Bite
had
size.
entire meetings with Schneider Electric just on the PR and the marketing for the whole project. So that is wrapped into the year of construction. So we just couldn't roll it out until
council approved.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's why I say, once
There
the
we go.
budget is done, we should be ready to move on that and have talking points out. Anybody else? I do want to make another comment. I appreciate the chamber being here, being represented. I'll let you know that, was it last Wednesday or Tuesday, I got an email that said Sierra Vista was the 4th best city in the state, based on a survey that the Arizona Chamber had done, and of course we went back to find the details, and there was no details to be found. So today we got an email, and it basically had the details in it. And basically we were beat out by Swarita, Sun City, and Green Valley, and then came us, and then there was Tempe. And Tempe and Sun City traditionally are the ones that come up high on the quality of life things, and they looked at business. There were 5 or 6 categories that they looked at, from business to education to whatever else, and it was a survey done. So this is a good economic tool for us. Judy's going to get some PR out for us.
Where did that come from?
It came from the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, the
Is
state
that
level.
a document we can read?
Awesome.
Well, that's what we just got in the email today that we were looking for last week, and they didn't come up with. So Judy will get some information out to the public on that as well, and that's a coup for us. Normally we don't even show up, but people don't even consider us for those things. But that's for towns with populations above 2,500. So I'm sure Bisbee at 25,000 is 25,000. I was 2,500. Okay. So we're on the secret's out. Okay. And
Thank you,
we
Judy.
just need to continue to exploit that and grow. Plus, I heard a rumor about tax revenue being uncommonly high for the month of May, which is a good indication. We haven't figured out why yet, but hopefully we can get that, figure out why and keep it sustained. So that'll be good for.
We're trying to identify that, but also with the existing housing sales are doing very well, and we have very high occupancy rates in our
So
apartments. right
things
now.
are starting to move economically, and I know Tony's efforts and everybody else's efforts in this have helped out with that. So
Major contract change
good
too.
job. Anything else? Anything else?
So we made our-
Okay. Thank you very much for the meeting today and the good questions.
Thank you, sir.
Adjourned.